is June 17, 168 days into the year. That means 197 days left until the year ends. How many days?
To Christmas, 192 days to be exact. To Christmas.
To be exact?
To be exact.
All right.
Your countdown imeanza. I think so exciting.
You're so excited for Christmas?
Tukianza countdown ya Christmas.
Less than 200.
Yeah, we're less than 200. And we promised that after 200, tutaanza kuhesabu.
Kuna time natuka tunasema because of course we're focusing on important things. Matters of national importance. This is Morning Cafe.
My name is Freddie Ndimuli, karibu sana.
Tukiangalia magazeti, The Standard, no, just resign.
Anasema haitoshi. How Lagat fell, that's the front page of the Daily Nation.
People Daily, why DIG Lagat had to step aside.
Lagat ainua mikono, gazeti la Taifa Leo.
And Business Daily, Treasury bonds to earn local investors 851 billion shillings.
Even the Star, today, despite being Tuesday, you know they had already prepared a different front page. They actually have two front pages. But this one, they had to do it. Lagat gives in. Yani kila mali Lagat. Nafikiri tu ni Business Daily, hakuna Lagat. Yeah.
All right.
So for State of the Nation today, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, will be with us alongside Kibe Mungai, constitutional lawyer, and Joe Mutambu, the former MP Mwingi Central. Unfortunately, Sabina Chege will not make it today, but we're covered.
We're sorted.
We're sorted.
All right. Later on, today's Biashara Tuesday, we'll be talking to Lillian Mwai, County Director, Trademark Africa, on business competitiveness in East Africa.
Yeah, so my empowerment, your women and youth.
Kisha baadaye, Matters First Aid, Brenda Murugi will be back again. She's a trainer at St. John's Ambulance. We'll be talking about first aid for bleeding and soft tissue injuries.
Shazan was here last week teaching people about how to save people from choking. Brilliant.
All right, kivuka border, Uganda.
NRM, 553 vie for district positions. This is a national revolution movement. I mean, I talk about NRM. National resistance, resistance movement. Chama tawala cha Uganda. Full list of aspirants for party LC5 primaries inside, pages 2, 3, and 6. You know, the elections are coming up next year. So watu wanajiprepare mapema. Kwingineko, Agasirwe charged over Kagezi murder. Na Kagezi, you know, it's a murder from kitambo sana, about 10 to 15 years ago. Yeah. General Muhoozi assesses Gulu UPDF operations. Of course, that's the Chief of Defense Forces in Uganda. Other stories, law to try civilians in army court signed. Now it's official. Yes, it's official. Civilians can be tried before the court martial. And Red Flag has 10,000 apply for second national IDs. Why are they applying? Oh yeah, but they remember President Museveni was applying for IDs. And talking of Mr. Yoweri Museveni, of course, haizi kosa kwa front page ya New Vision, ako pale juu, anapoint miti. Yeah. Jana alikuwa anasalamia watu, siku ingine akasalamia ng'ombe, leo anapoint miti. Lazima kwe hapa pele. PDM, how 1 million shillings changed Mutambala women's life. So huyu ni kama, alipo 1 million na Museveni?
Ni kama.
Kama. The story is on page 3. That's a New Vision in Uganda.
All right, still in Uganda, Daily Monitor, facing his past. Person of interest he is. In 2015, Senior Superintendent of Police Nixon Agasirwe led investigators to probe the assassination of Senior Principal State Attorney John Kagozi. 10 years later, the man picked from the streets of Mbarara more than 2 decades ago and catapulted through the police ranks, now might have a case to answer over the same case.
That's very interesting, that he's the one who actually led the investigations. Then he ends up 10 years later, 10 years later, he's on answering for the charges. Yeah.
Kuna mtu alikuwa anaenda kurushwa chini ya basi huko. Anasema 10 years, Joan Kagozi was killed on March 30, 2015 after she stopped by a grocery in Kiwatulia in Kampala. The conversation that gave away Agasirwe and the making of police most feared man.
Are you seeing the kind of headline you're saying? Something very similar to what's happening in Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah? The same cops who are supposed to guard human life and protect are being accused of perpetrating some not so good things. This is the same theme in Kenya. Kenya, same face, similar on all the front pages.
Other stories here, court martial back like it never left. That story is on page 2. NRM rakes in billions from political aspirants. Tulikuwa tunasema jana parties, kuna pesa mingi kule. And that's the Daily Monitor.
Right. Cross over into Uganda, and there are very busy pages today. The Citizen, unajishanga tutaanzia wapi? Kila mahali kuna picha, nini? Hadithi nyingi. Samia's plan for L-zone economic transformation. President Samia Suluhu Hassan yesterday pledged to fast-track major economic reforms in the Lake Zone regions of Simiyu and Mwanza, that's Lake Victoria, with emphasis on industrialization, domestic resource mobilization, and support for agricultural value chains, particularly with regard to cotton. And yes, ni ukweli, siku hizi pia yako kwa front page sana. Come back home, to be honest, for the past 1 month or so, we're not seeing President Ruto on the front pages. Yeah. Kwingineko, MPs, manufacturers applaud budget offer proposals. Yes, discussions in most parliaments across East Africa on the budget proposals begin. I think there in Tanzania started yesterday. In Kenya, they begin today because parliament sits starting on Tuesday to debate the budget estimates presented by none other than John Badi. Pale chini, anasema Lissu up in arms over remand conditions and rights violations. He's been behind bars for 69 days now. Now I'm keeping count, 69 days. Meanwhile, kule Uganda tulisahau Besigye amekaa siku ngapi? I think amekaribisha 200 days hivi.
3 months.
Amekaa.
Tusisahau Lissu pia.
BOT, gold companies move to boost forex reserves. Na pale juu why online ticket service providers now face LATRA ban. That's Tanzania on the Citizen. Very busy page.
Kisalia kule gazeti la Mwananchi, mwelekeo mpya wa kujitegemea. Rais Samia ataka wafanyabiashara kulipa kodi kwa hiari, aonya maofisa TRA, their KRA, kutumia nguvu, azindua miradi kuifungua kanda ya ziwa, chanjo utambuzi wa mifugo kuwabeba wafugaji nchini. Rais Samia Suluhu, same story, the front page of gazeti la Mwananchi. Anayoyapitia Lissu ndani ya siku 68 gerezani.
Sema sio maisha rahisi.
Wanandoa waliouawa kuagwa leo. Very sad story there. And Pemba njiani kuwa kinara wa uvumbuzi na biashara. Today, gazeti la Mwananchi is not so busy. Usually it's the busy.
I think the Citizen is too busy today.
Yeah.
If you compare the Citizen, let's go back kidogo, you compare the Citizen, the front page, and the New Vision, the Daily Monitor. Usually the Daily Monitor is the neatest front page. Story ni moja ama tatu, and wame explain vizuri with some nice graphics. Leo ameweka tu sura pale pap. Usually kuna kuanga na graphics. I think this is the best graphic they could get today. That's Daily Monitor. But this is too busy. To be honest, this is just too busy. Hata unachoka ukiangalia kwa macho.
Kule juu on the top strip of Mwananchi, wabunge walia na utafiti, elimu, mjadala, bajeti. Matters budgets, of course, still taking center stage in the East African community. Tukiangalia hali ya anga sasa, zoom.earth.
Tuangalie mawingu yanatanda upande gani Afrika. So yes, this is how the cloud cover, okay, we're going to see it in a moment. Yes, there it is. Most of the cloud cover, of course, on the western part of the continent, areas around Ivory Coast, kule kwingine. Nigeria also has some cloud cover. Once you come closer to the central part of Africa, DRC, areas around Chad na Uganda. Najua watu wajuange Central African Republic iko wapi ama Chad iko wapi. Inakuanga tu area huko. Uganda has some cloud cover. And they're sharing this with DRC and South Sudan. Ethiopia too. That common border with Sudan, South Sudan and Ethiopia, a lot of cloud cover there. But when you come to Kenya, inakani kama tujabarikiwa sana na cloud cover, but you could still see some dots here and there. So si kubaya sana, we might get some rain. We start off in Meru, the Mount Kenya region.
15 degrees in Meru, feels like 14. Cloudy day, they say, and precipitation here, 0.7 millimeters, highs of 22 degrees in Meru.
That's quite chilly. The northernmost part of the Kenyan coastline in Lamu, it's quite warm, 26 degrees, mostly cloudy throughout the day. Promises to get as high as 28 degrees. Sio mbaya, but a lot of cloud cover today. In as far as precipitation is concerned, 0.7 millimeters, just similar to Meru. Kidogo tu.
Tukivuka kule Nakuru.
Uko kule kwetu nyumbani sasa.
14 degrees in Nakuru. It's a cloudy day but rainy day as well. Highs of 22 degrees. Precipitation here is 3.6 millimeters.
Lovely weather. Lovely weather.
Very lovely. Toka saa 4 kutakuwa kunanyesha kule Nakuru all the way.
Hadi usiku.
Hadi usiku. Homa Bay.
19 degrees in Homa Bay. It's also a cloudy day there. Of course, areas around Lake Victoria kuna mawingu pale. Highs of 27 degrees. There could be a chance of rain later in the afternoon, around 4. Yes, 2.7 millimeters of rainfall. Late afternoon. Yes.
Now Nairobi, finally 14 degrees. Feels like it's a cloudy day as well. Highs of 21.
Chilly day in Nairobi. Leo ni ile unakaa utoi koti.
Absolutely. Precipitation here is 2.2 millimeters. And some from Sasaba kule, it will be raining all the way hadi usiku.
All right.
That's the weather situation. Tuangalie traffic. 17 minutes past the top of the hour.
So Nairobi, imefika wakati gani? Thika Road jana kulikuwa na shida kubwa sana pale around Githurai, lakini leo ni kama haiko. Thika Road is looking good. Ni saa ngapi?
11 minutes.
11 minutes past the hour, yes.
Yeah.
So you can actually see, yes. Pale Pangani interchange, it's building up slowly. Haina shida sana. Nothing to worry about. Even Jogoo Road, Makadara, today is a slow traffic day. Angalia hata Makadara, iko tu kama kawaida, nothing much. Wale wengine kule Kangundo Road, getting a bit busy on the usual parts, pale Komarok, Kayole, Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, that junction there, but nothing much to worry about. Pipeline, ndio matatu zimeanza kubeba watu waende town, wakafanye kazi. Na ni kama inakataa ku-upload pale sana, but nothing out of the ordinary. At Eastern Bypass is looking good. Hii barabara yote ya juu expressway niko sawa. Pale chini ile Mombasa Road ya chini pale Maradema getting busy, and it's getting busy as well as you get next to General Motors. But after that it's smooth all the way into town. Once umeingia town pale Haile Selassie Avenue, it's getting busy. Areas around Landis Road, Landis Roundabout, wale wanaingia pale OTC, wengine wanateremka Haile Selassie. Area pale ya Marikiti getting quite busy this morning. Upande ingine ya working from home au tusishughulike nao sana, mutafika tu. Bora internet inafanya kazi, you can work from home. Yes.
All right, let's take a look at the quote of the day.
Take the attitude of a student. Never be too big to ask questions, never too much to learn something new.
All right, let's come back and take a look at the local dailies. We start off with the Standard. No, just resign. Lying low, even as Deputy Inspector General of Police Eli Lagat announced that he was stepping aside following pressure over the killing of Albert Ojwang. After his name repeatedly came up in the matter, public anger only intensified. Many now demand his resignation, and prosecution, like others already in court, Kenyans remain steadfast in their push for justice. They see through the familiar tactic of diffusing outrage with symbolic gestures, stepping aside only to be quietly reinstated later.
I saw some argument somewhere that within the police service, there's no provision for stepping aside. It's either you resign, you're fired, or you die.
Oh, really?
No, that was the argument. I'm saying I saw it somewhere.
Well, okay.
So this thing of stepping aside, I think it's something new. I don't know if cops can actually step aside.
Unajua hapo kizungu itapiga wengi chenga.
Ukiwa
Stepping aside, stepping down. Resigning?
Are you being interdicted?
Yes.
Well,
Stepping aside is to allow for investigations, of course. Temporarily, but now stepping down is permanently going home.
and you realize the standard is for the past 1 week, especially on this matter of Albert Ojwang, maintained a black front page.
Yeah.
They usually have white and then colors nyingi, lakini wame maintain black. They've been very intense on their messaging for this, very intentional rather.
Now, DIG yesterday released a statement, akisema, in the good and conscious thought of my role and responsibilities as the DIG of Kenya Police Service, and in view of the ongoing investigations on the unfortunate incident of the death of Mr. Albert Ojwang, I have today opted to step aside from the office of the DIG Kenya Police Service pending completion of the investigations. The functions of the office will henceforth be performed by my deputy until completion of the investigation.
Indo swali ingine. Deputy IG akona deputy. So you are deputy IG.
Na tena kuna mwingine pia huyo akona deputy na vice deputy. I undertake to provide any support that may be required of me during the investigations of the unfortunate incident. I offer immense condolences to the family of Mr. Albert Ojwang for their great loss. His story, every day there's something new. Yesterday, the Mukwana, is it Mukwana? The police, one of the police officer.
Pages nasikia kuna, we have the inside pages, so yeah, because if we can have the various standard pages, just to see how black they've been. The previous front pages, yes. You see they've maintained a black background on most of them, especially when they're talking about Gen Zs and the murder. Tortured, strangled, killers caught boss, blood on their hands, killed by police, fury against Lagat, big fish free, small ones fried, Lagat unmoved, shameless top cops, and now today, no, just resign. A standard wamekanyaga kweli kweli.
Wanafinya, they're not here to play. Now, one of the police officers, I'm trying to look for his name, alikuwa anaitwa Mukwana.
Mukwana, yes.
Mukwana yesterday alitoa some very, very, grave revelations. Akisema na OCS Talam, alipeana orders, afaini afinywe, lakini asiuliwe. DIG Lagat, his name also came up.
I don't know. You see?
Mahabusu wakatumwa pale kupiga Ojwang.
Sasa wamesema ni mahabusu walimpiga.
Guess for how much? 2,000 bob.
Wakaambiwa piga huyo jamaa.
Walipiga wakamua.
Are we sure that is what happened, or that is just one of the?
Are we sure? Because now we are hearing, different.
That's just one of the stories. Yes, there are those who claim that by the time he was being taken to the central police station, he had already been beaten up.
Yeah.
Yes. So
those claiming akukwa na maabusu wengine.
He was in a cell alone. Remember?
Yeah.
Alafu CCTV zikapotea. Wacha tungoje. Let the investigations continue. Meanwhile, we'll bring you the stories as they come.
All right, kiangalia ndani, a man blamed suicide in another police station killing 13 years ago. That story of Mukwana, I was following my boss's orders. Amesema amwanguki na mimi. Other stories, Gachagua credits survival to state inside network.
There's an interesting one here. I think we'll repeat page 8.
Okay.
Amin was a DCI boss who they had initially claimed that this guy, the initial claim was suicide.
Yeah.
Sasa Amin kumbe apparently he blamed suicide in another police station killing 13 years ago. Kwa hivyo ni kitu inajirudia. Mtu anakufa alafu anasema ni kama aliji off.
I don't think they'll ever lie about suicide again.
It's a tired old lie. They need to move on.
All right, on the back page of the Standard, oh, what a mismatch. Bayern Munich score record 10 against amateurs Auckland City, and Bundesliga champions take on Argentine giants Boca Juniors in the next tie on Friday.
And you do realize that there's nowhere where we're talking about the budget. There's a lot of debate around, we should be debating the budget this week. That's what Parliament is doing. But there's no mention of the budget anywhere. In fact, people are talking more about Gen Zs and the revolt 1 year later, which is a big story either way. Yes.
The Standard.
Daily Nation, something similar, how Lagat fell End of the road, they ask. Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat finally yields to sustained public pressure and steps aside to allow for investigations into the killing of teacher-cum-blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody. Now, what started with a defamatory post on social media now threatens to end the career of the police force's second-in-command while stoking anger over extrajudicial killings and President William Ruto's regime. So pale kuna wale watu wawili ambao wamekuwa accused. Constable James Mukhwana, who is now spilling the beans, he has amended his statement. Now you see now that's hapo ndio issue.
That's another thing.
Now you start amending. Initially you had said this, now you say, oh no, let me change the statement. So this is what happened, implicating his bosses. Central Police Station OCS Samson Talam was charged yesterday at the Milimani Law Courts. Now you see.
But are we sure if Mukhwana is also saying the truth? Labda is a script as well.
That's
Maybe.
what I'm saying. Let the investigations continue because one, he had given a different statement. Then now he has changed his statement. Wacha koti waendelee na hiyo maneno. It's Uhuru versus Gachagua in battle for Mount Kenya. That's one of the political stories, at least on the front page. Stories on page 7, at least wanasema impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's plot to lock out other political parties from the populous Mount Kenya region has triggered a fierce backlash, with his critics ganging up to front alternative political outfits. Ni kama wamemwogopa sana. Niliona hata Moses Kuria on his X page amepiga picha na kaeka former president hapo na Jubilee Party. Yet he's an advisor to President William Ruto. So I don't know what exactly he's trying to tell us. Kioni pia amefurahi sana. Pengine ndio sababu Sabina Chege amekataa kuja leo asubuhi. Unajua pia alikuwa amengangania hiyo chama ya Jubilee. Alafu ikaleta moto, ni kama wakanyang'anywa. Hata mimi ningesema sikuji. Tena siongee vibaya.
She'll be here maybe next week.
Of course.
Wacha nakusikia.
No. All in
On a light note.
On a light note. OCS in Ojwang murder probe detained pending bond ruling. OCS Talam walimurusha under the bus haraka sana. Maraga to initiate private prosecution of top cops. Now this is a different angle to it. The former Chief Justice David Maraga has vowed to initiate private prosecutions against the top police bosses over the death of blogger and school teacher Albert Ojwang. And I think that will be very helpful. It's a very tiny story on page 4 of this paper, but I think there's something different because mara umeweka hii statement, mara umetoa, mara sijui nani anasema nani alikuwa wapi, mara imegeuka. We need to move forward. Ruto Raila speak to Ojwang family as support pours in, and I think there was a donation of 2 million shillings to the family, and they also promised to build a house for them. And some even President William Ruto called the family of the father and mom to the
Ojwang.
Albert Ojwang. And
unajua Wakenya wamekasirika na hiyo maneno sana.
Sasa hata mkasirika na washasaidika tufanye nini?
Washasaidika. You know somebody said wacha tu wachukue pesa. Wachukue wasichukue
hata ukikasirika ukatae kuchukua, what does it mean? Kalonzo dismisses Kindiki overtures, vows to remain in opposition. This is a very interesting. And kuna katuna hata leo taangalia wanakaa kisema tio they're trying to woo Kalonzo their way. Amesema hapana, I am not available. And finally, ile picha yenye tulikuwa nasema should be on the front pages juzi. Iko page 8. At least they're talking about the budget. Lawmakers in 18.5 billion shilling county cash impasse. That's page 8. At least a discussion about the budget. Tuangalie back page. 8 coaches in 4 years, tough choices won title for Kenya Police. Remember, Kenya Police FC are the winners of the FKF Premier League. So, wameng'ang'ana, finally, wamefika hapo.
Daily Nation, tuangalie Taifa Leo sasa.
Taifa Leo ilikuwa inasema ilikuwa mahali hapa. Lagat ainua mikono. Yes.
Hatimaye naibu Inspector Generali akanyaga kando kutokana na shinikizo za Wakenya kuhusu mauaji ya Ojwang. Ni pressure, wanasema naibu Inspector Generali wa polisi Eliud Lagat amehusishwa pakubwa na mauaji ya mwalimu na blogger Albert Ojwang, hasa ikizingatiwa ndiye aliyekuwa mlalamishi katika kisa kilichosababisha kukamatwa na kuuawa kwake. Alijiandaa afisini jana ili kuruhusu uchunguzi huru kufanyika. Of course, and that statement from Eliud Lagat yesterday. Vidokezo vingine, Kindiki Kalonzo wamenyana. Hii ni baada ya wito wa ushirikiano wa naibu wa rais kwa Kalonzo kukataliwa. 2027 Nasir amponda Gachagua. Gavana apokea heri Gadhi kwa tamko lake kuwa atahakikisha anashinda mwaka 2027. Na vifo Israel vyafika 24, Iran 224 katika mashambulizi ya usiku wa kuamkia jana. Iran iliua raia 8 wa Israel hasa jijini Haira. You saw that station which was bombed yesterday.
Live.
I'm
telling you.
Vidokezo vingine, bajeti ya mlo shuleni yapunguzwa. Serikali yatengea mpango wa chakula shuleni shilingi bilioni 3 badala ya shilingi bilioni 4. Na mwanaspoti pale vitimbi Bayern na PSG wakifunga vua la magoli pale. Taifa Leo.
Next up, People Daily, why DIG Lagat had to step aside, same story. He bowed out after meeting President William Ruto, so President Ruto had to be involved in this, who directed him to keep away until ongoing investigations into Albert Ojwang's murder are concluded. That means it had to take the president's intervention for the DIG of police to actually say, ni sawa, wacha nimetoka. Another quick story, Gachagua hits back at Ruto over handover remark. Ila alisema hizi peana kisu kwa mtu. Kamboya hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Hata usipokuja pale kwa handover, tutaendelea. Shocker for civil servants as state now introduces new degree requirements. Wameambiwa, by the way, wapatia 2 years. If you're a senior civil servant, you better get a master's degree.
Oh, wow.
In the next 2 years. Yes.
Lazima usome.
Coast emerges as key battleground in 2027 polls. That story is on page 8, Matters Politics. And that's the People Daily.
All right, let's take a look at the Star. One story, mbele ya Star. For the longest time, I haven't seen this. Lagat gives in. Only story. You
know why? If you look at it in the inside pages, I told you it had 2 front pages. Now this was a paper. New demo spotlight on Ruto promises to Gen Z. That was actually the main headline. Sasa huyu jamaa alipo step aside, ama ali step in, ali give in. They had to create a new 8-page paper. So iko na front page mara mbili. Yes.
All right, so you can take a look at that.
This is the main one. But it's the same story. We've already looked at
Initially, they were saying new demos, spotlight on Ruto promises to Gen Z. Kule ndani wanasema vipi? Nasema President William Ruto is facing mounting public skepticism over his commitments to Gen Z as the country marks 1 year after the bloody anti-tax and anti-government protests that nearly drove Kenya to its knees. The president was not genuine. He was forced to appear to be taking measures which it turned out he did not believe in. This is somebody quoted here. I'm trying to look for him. Okay.
At least that story, I've also seen it in another paper. That's
this is Suba Churchill. Suba Churchill, the human rights activist. Suba Churchill is not an activist, though. Asisikia nasema he's an activist. Veteran human rights defender.
Activist too. Atakubali tu.
Okay. Other stories here. Counties in debt as cash delays fuel borrowing. And sorry, court tells man put on death row as a teenager. A teenager ulikuwa umepatiwa death sentence lakini sahi huwezi. That's the Star, fresh, independent, different on the original. The initial.
The only paper with 2 front pages today. And by it's Tuesday, so it's for free. Imagine you get 2 front pages for free. Yeah.
That story on Ojwang. Ruto donates 2 million shillings to Ojwang families, orders a thorough investigation into son's death. Na Baba Ojwang alifurahi sana, amesema rais amechukua mtoto wake kama wake.
I don't think people should blame. He's a grieving father. Yes. Any kind of assistance he can get right now. Of course, he has a grandchild to raise as well.
Yes.
So, I sioni makosa iko wapi.
There's an interesting one here. It will be mandatory for police stations to have CCTV. That is according to Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen. The directive is part of a broader set of police reforms that Murkomen unveiled yesterday. Hakuna police CCTV?
Ilikuwa
Ati
ikazimwa.
hakuna police CCTV, hakuna CCTV police station.
Ilikuwa ikazimwa. Unless you're promising that it will be permanently on, because that's a concern.
All right.
Right.
That's the Star.
Business Daily, Treasury bonds to earn local investors 851 billion shillings. This domestic public debt surges to 6.12 trillion. Wealthy investors gain from interest rate jump. You see, a lot of this money that the government is borrowing is borrowing directly from Kenyans through treasury bills and bonds. Yes, there's the money it gets from banks, lakini sasa kuna wale bonds. Local investors, weka pesa yako pale because interest rate ukiambiwa ni 18%. Hey, 851 billion. Shida tu ni watalipa. Hiyo serikali. How Bamburi Cement paid parent company 27 billion shilling fees. We're just talking about quick figures here. Pesa mingi mingi. On the ticker, current account deficit narrows to 1.8% of GDP. Centum Re to complete 2.6 billion IFC-backed homes project by 2029. These are just some of the business-linked stories on the front page of the Business Daily.
Right. Tuangalie caricature sasa, right into it. This is the Daily Nation. Sweeping reforms in the security sector. That is Kipchumba Murkomen quoted there. Lakini hiyo kifagio imeisha.
Hiyo kifagio haiwezi.
Iwezi.
Inakaa kama rake.
Inakaa kama rake. Exactly. Lakini we see, of course, his PS is here, Raymond Omolo, and IG Kanja pia pale anachungulia.
Na mbona siku hizi wanachorwa ni kama wanachungulia hivi nyuma wote, from behind the scenes.
Ni kama wanakuwa protected, maybe.
IG Kanja. Hiyo kifagio tafuta nyingine. Aha, this is the People Daily. The suggestion that Kalonzo Musyoka could be attracted towards Kenya Kwanza's side. Look, that's a president, the former prime minister, and the current deputy president. Wanajaribu kumwekea kamtego na yeye anafanya tap. Alafu wanajiambia pa, if we get him, it will be the end of the opposition. Lakini amesema in one of the papers, it's not happening. Yes, that's People Daily.
All right. The Star.
Yes.
Akatino na Albert Ojwang bado. Ameuliwa hapa lakini watu wanajaribu kurukana kabisa.
Kila mtu anaruka, kichwa tofauti, aipoa, nani, askari, kila mtu, hakuna mtu anataka kupatikana hapa.
Kila mtu anaruka, wanarushana tu chini ya bus. The Star.
And on the Standard, the former CJ finally caricatured here. CJ Maraga, 2027, yasema mina 27, lakini anambia president, the back stops with you in as far as killer cops are concerned. Hiyo usiambie mtu mwingine, hiyo ni yako. That's what they're saying.
Mambo yako hiyo.
Hiyo ni yako hiyo.
All right. Later on, State of the Nation.
We'll be having James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, in studio alongside Kibe Mungai, who's a constitutional lawyer, and Joe Mutambo, former MP Mungi Central, for that discussion. We're having a lot more in store for you later on, so do stand by for that.
33 minutes past the top of the hour. Interact with us on our socials, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and on YouTube. On X at TV47 News KE, my handle is at @Ann_Dida, and the hashtag is Morning Cafe.
And my handle is at Fred Ndimuli. See you after the break.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Aurora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
for comprehensive information and education on your health. Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
You're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Our world is changing every day, and so should.
In a press statement, Lagat said he opted to step aside from the office of the Deputy Inspector General, Kenya Police Service, pending completion of investigations. The embattled police boss promised to undertake to provide any support that may be required of him during the investigations of the unfortunate incident. This statement further reads that in the good and conscious thought of his role and responsibilities as the Deputy Inspector General of the Kenya Police Service, and given the ongoing investigations on the unfortunate incident of the death of Albert Ojwang, he opted to step aside from the office of the Deputy Inspector General, Kenya Police Service, pending completion of investigations. Eliud Lagat has been adversely mentioned in the case of the murder of Ojwang. The Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, confirmed that Lagat was a complainant in the case.
There was a complaint that had been launched by the DIG KPS about his name being tarnished. So it is on that basis that investigations were actually being carried out, because he also have got a right.
Lagat is said to have filed a complaint following a publication that Ojwang allegedly tweeted, painting Lagat in a bad light. Ojwang's father also confirmed that when his son was arrested in Homa Bay, the officers told him that they had been sent by their boss. He also conveyed a message of condolences to the family of Albert Ojwang for the great loss. Meanwhile, former Chief Justice David Maraga has demanded the arrest of Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja, his deputy Eliud Lagat, and the Director of Criminal Investigations Mohamed Amin over the death of Ojwang.
The three institutions charged with the maintenance of law and order, that's the National Police Service, the DCI, and the IPOA, have lied on oath. Our institutions of human rights and justice need a serious resetting and a rebuilding. To begin this resetting and rebuilding process, we demand the arrest of the DCI because he lied on oath, and the IG, as well as Mr. Lagat himself.
The former CJ says they all lied under oath about the kidnapping and the eventual murder of the influencer.
This era of impunity shall only come to an end when the people reclaim their power under the Constitution that carries their hopes, dreams, and guarantees human dignity.
Maraga spoke while presenting a petition at the police headquarters in Nairobi, demanding for immediate action before June 25th. Joash Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
Yes, indeed, it is a story that simply refuses to leave our headlines. DIG Eliud Lagat finally issuing a statement saying he's stepping aside. According to most of the stories, it has been revealed that this move, and I'm quoting directly from the Daily Nation, the decision by the Deputy IG of Police, Eliud Lagat, to step aside over the death of teacher Albert Ojwang was reached after a flurry of meetings involving top government officials, including President William Ruto. This paper can reveal, and it's not the only paper that has said this. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning, beginning on my immediate left. James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Alongside him we have Kibe Mungaya, constitutional lawyer, karibu sana wakili.
Thank you very much.
And Joe Mutambu, former MP Mwingi Central, karibu sana, mheshimiwa. Now, the question is, finally, of course, the demands were that the Deputy IG does relinquish his position to allow for investigations. But I'm trying to understand, and probably Wakili, you'll help us here, but before Wakili comes in, Bwana Gakuya, this should have happened way before. They didn't need to take the intervention of the president for the Deputy IG to actually step aside.
Thank you, Dimuli. Allow me to salute the viewers wherever they are watching this morning show from. And coming to the matter on the headlines of most of our papers, I don't think that one has to be massaged to take responsibility. DIG is very much aware that he was the main suspect, taking consideration that he was the complainant of this matter. There was no way that officers went all the way to Homa Bay to look for this particular young teacher without instruction from him. And there is no way it can end up with losing the life of Ojwang without the knowledge of one DIG. And therefore, once you are mentioned in this kind of behavior, I think obviously what you should do is to step aside to allow investigation. How can there be a fair investigation when you are still in office and you want to be investigated when you are sitting? The hand means, obviously, you will intervene or interfere with the investigation. And I think it has taken too long for him to step aside. And for me, stepping aside is not the action that DIG should have taken. The DIG is serious enough. He ought to have resigned from his duty, from his position. And let me tell you, it is not complete when the DIG has not seen the light of the day in courts of the law.
Okay.
I am, as part of, he should not at any point be seen as a witness to the government. He should be an accused because he knows more and he is the foundation of the death of a John. And he can't run away from this. And all the instructions that were given to the OCS of Central Police came from the DIG himself. Then who directed the OCS to teach a lesson to that young man? It was from his boss. And therefore, he ought to take responsibility.
Okay. Wakili, the issue about this wording, stepping aside.
Yes.
Because that's the issue. Kenyan law does not necessarily explicitly provide for stepping aside of a police officer in case of such serious accusations. Probably an issue of interdiction, suspension, or resignation. But from your standpoint, is there any provision for stepping aside for someone like him?
Actually, there is no provision for stepping aside in our laws. What I'm aware is that the Constitution requires people, you remember he's a state officer, not just a public officer. And when you're a state officer, the obligation as a person who exercises power on public trust, which must be seen to be accountable and an enforcer of the Constitution, it means that Chapter 6 applied more to you on leadership and ethics, applies more to you than any other public servants like a clerk or somebody else who is a driver working or a police constable working in the police force. The fact of the matter is, the moment in Kenya, because we've had the problem of abduction and lawful disappearances, the moment as a senior state officer you have been involved, implicated in these crimes that amounts to crimes against humanity under international law, your own position as the head of the Kenyan police became completely untenable. And therefore, under the constitutions of Kenya, the DIG has an obligation to tender his resignation. And at the very least, I think the president himself, as the appointing authority, has an obligation to expressly and publicly require the DIG as his appointee that having been so directly implicated in the heinous crime that is a part of a series of crimes that have been ongoing on, that you cannot remain in that office, and the office must be occupied by a person who takes the Constitution seriously, because you can imagine this stepping aside, how long will it take? Because as the trial goes on, the predominant name, assuming that the IPOA will not have the confidence and integrity to say he must be charged with murder, even assuming he's not charged with murder. Every day that this matter is on trial, we shall be hearing one important name, that one of Lagat. But as I conclude, there is an interesting story in the Standard. In the Standard, on the page that is talking about the resignation, the stepping aside of DIG Lagat, they are talking about the issue of Baby Pendo, whose suspects were freed on bail yesterday. The significance of this is important. These police officers who are implicated, and they are senior officers, in the killing of Baby Pendo, were even less implicated in the killing of Baby Pendo, more than Lagat. So that the precedent is already there. That if the senior officers in the case of Baby Pendo are facing murder charges, what about a scenario where as DIG boss, You make what appears to be an unlawful accusation, which is not reported anywhere. But more importantly, you get your friend and colleague, the DCI, Amin, to go and carry what is actually an abduction under the guise of arrest. Then on the very day that he arrives here, according to the confession of Mukwana yesterday, you have already arranged how he will be taught a lesson. This teaching of a lesson leads to death. This is murder most foul, as you can ever imagine.
The standard Bwana Mutambu demands more than just stepping aside. Wakili says there's no provision for stepping aside even. Yet in Kenya, we've seen that very senior officials have even claimed publicly that they'd rather die than resign. Why is it so hard to step down from a position of such stature as a state officer?
Lagat is a property of someone, somewhere. And I want to surprise Kenyans. Lagat has gone nowhere. He is still a government officer as we speak, as of today. He is entitled to basic salary. He is entitled to everything. Just by mere stepping aside. He has just taken leave, for lack of a better word. He has just taken leave. And his office has been occupied by someone on a temporary measure who is just acting, right? So Lagat has gone nowhere. Whatever we are seeing today is mere PR, public relationship exercise for people to think otherwise. But the truth of the matter, the man is still very powerful in government as I speak. He is entitled, like I've said, to salary. If he was having a government vehicle, he's still having. If he was having a bodyguard, he's still having. So he has gone nowhere. So we are being cheated that this man now has left the office. He has not left the office. He will still command from where he is. That's what we need to understand. And that's what we need to tell Kenyans. The truth, the man has gone nowhere. The crimes he committed are being covered. And that's what I'm saying is a product of somebody. Right? They are being covered by the most senior government officers in the security system in our country.
Okay.
Because if you are intelligent enough and you analyze the statement and the way director of the DCI presented himself before both Parliament and Senate, when he was talking about what happened, and when they went to give a presser, okay? When you read all that, if I were the director of criminal investigation in the country, I would have resigned a long time ago. Because you cannot lie under oath in our country, under our laws. And this is a person who is supposed to protect the same laws and arrest people who break the laws. Now he's the one breaking.
Okay.
Because lying under oath is a criminal offense. He did it. Nobody is asking him. And he was doing so to protect Lagat.
And he did
what
so in
is
the
the
House of
difference
Parliament
between Lagat and the OCS, who was immediately arrested and aligned into court? Why was Lagat not arrested and taken to court? And he is the architecture of whatever drama is happening. He is the author. He is the master. He is the steering. He is everything. Because if he never sent people, if he never complained about something which he should not have complained, and I said it here the other time, that police work under order. He gave, there is that onogram of the working structure. So he gave an instruction to his juniors to go and arrest it. So he is the author of what we are seeing today. What is he doing in the office?
All right. What about the position of both houses of parliament? Because we saw the outrage. We saw, and according to Bwana Mutambu, yes, some of these statements that have been retracted, some statements that they came an apologist about, some misinformation that was even given to parliamentarians. It would appear will go without any consequence. What does it say about the houses of oversight, both the National Assembly and the Senate, that all this can happen publicly, and all you can get from you is outrage, probably more or less playing to the gallery?
It is also important to take note that the parliament has their boundaries. Their obligations is to investigate a matter and make recommendations. And I think those two committees, one from the Senate and the other one from the National Assembly, finally, they will table their reports at the floor of the House. And after that adoption of the report by the House, then the business will be left to the executive to implement. And the business of the House stops there. What they can do is to follow, to make sure that the implementation of those recommendations are done. That is the far they can do. But who belongs with actions is the executive. And today, every protection that DIG is getting, he is getting the protection from the executive and not from anywhere else. And I can tell you, in our jurisdiction, when your adversary name mentioned thoroughly, then the obvious is to resign. I don't think that, in fact, we need to eat anything wrong or to eat any law interpreter from heaven. It is clear that the author of the death of Ojwang is one DIG, period. Before you move to any progress, any investigation, DIG should be the first suspect.
Wakili, the one instance that I can remember that comes close to this one is probably what followed after the death of Cabinet Minister Robert Ouko. That a senior government official who was very close to the powers that be then was directly implicated, and he had to be forced to resign and even spend some days behind bars. How come we are seeing a delay in this one? What has changed? Yet we have a new constitution.
Actually, that's an ingenious question, because I think that's the heart of the matter. When this actually happened, and I've been seeing what we have, I finished my secondary school in 1990, in the same year that Robert Ouko was assassinated. And this, for my generation, which is the general generation also of the current president, this was the real moment when we were socialized into Kenyan politics, the depths of it. Now, the important questions that you raise about the issue of Robert Ouko is that, and this is what rings bell when we are talking about this issue today, is that the murder of Robert Ouko was in such a way that the executive, from down up to up, appeared to be implicated. The subject in 1990, like it is now, is corruption. That the person who was murdered was alleged to have implicated the government of the day in corruption. This is what Ojwang and those who had been arrested before him are actually accused. And the web of corruption is, how high does it get? Was it getting, going by the story, is that he was the linchpin, he was the organizer of this corruption web. We don't know how high it goes. And it was a serious issue of serious sensitivity when you go the extent to which DCI Amin went to try and get people abducted for practical purposes and brought to Nairobi and taken to Kamukunji and Central Police Station, which are alleged, at least by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, as special police station that Lagat has been running to engage in illegal activities. So when you see that the main implicated person, the government is dancing around the issue, not taking any action. Somebody like Mukwana, the police constable, giving what appears to be a suspicious confession that rings bell with a story. You remember this story from Mukuru, the slums, when they were dumping young people, then they get. Now Mukwana appears to be the equivalent of that person. But the effect of all these, as you can see, is that in Mukwana's statement, he appears to be implicating the OCS more than Lagat, if you read that statement as a lawyer. And therefore, where you see like the government is going out of the way to protect somebody, it actually shows that there is more to this than meets the eye. Now, the other thing that is equally important is that when you have finally had the Gesheru Commission of Inquiry, that and even that when it was disbanded is when you had Biwott and some other people arrested, is that you see all this happening because by the end of 1990, a general election was coming in 1992. And this general election, clearly because the facts were suggesting that the president of the day, Daniel Arap Moi, was not innocent, something had to be done. Somebody had to be felled. So that even in this particular case, if IG Lagat, the DIG Lagat is not charged, the fact of the matter, this is not a matter that is going to lie low, because responsibility in this particular matter must be taken. In 1990, you had a credible Attorney General, Amos Wako, at least he was a first-rate lawyer. He clearly appears to have recommended to the president, this will eat you if you do not get other people to take the hit. And that is why you had the commissions of inquiry. And you had it also at Watergate. So this initially, we have what we call the Robert Ouko moment. But if the president of the day is not careful, this will be a Watergate moment for him. Why is that the case? That all these abductions and unlawful activities of DIG Lagat and Amin, the beneficiary of the current political suppression by those officers, he is the political beneficiary of it. Finally, about Amin, I have seen Amin, the DCI. The DCI is the state officer in Kenya who ran the Subarus and the special squads directly under the law that have been implicated in the suppression of the Gen Z protest, in the abductions, the disappearances, and the killings. Yet, this is the most shocking public officer I see in Kenya. He stands in parliament, wants to tell us this is innocent, this is not innocent, I will carry investigations. How on earth does the person speaking as a lawyer, most responsible for the atrocities that have been made in the last 1 year, be the most telling us this is guilty, this is not guilty? Okay. And Parliament, they were just looking at that like zombies, taking stories from DCI, I mean, about who is guilty, who is not. Who is this who arrested, who abducted Ojwang?
All right.
It is DCI.
All right.
So for all practical purposes, we really need to get serious, and I hope the president himself, for his own good, does not let this to evolve into a Watergate moment.
And the question now is, how do we proceed? Of course, there's a suggestion by the former Chief Justice. I think he said he'll go to court or institute a different inquiry into it. We'll be looking at those options after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home, do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chip.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We continue probing the big headline of the day, and this is a latest move by DIG of Police, Bwana Lagat, Eliud Lagat, to step aside, whether or not there's any provision, such provisions in Kenyan law for him stepping aside. Is he still a police officer? Does he still enjoy the benefits? But moving forward, because so much is happening and there's very little public trust that the police would be able to conduct a proper investigation into a case such as this. So we're trying to look back and see other instances where probably something similar has happened. Page 4 of the Daily Nation, they talk about the former CJ, David Maraga, vowing to initiate private prosecutions against the top police bosses over the death of the school teacher, camp blogger Albert Ojwang. If we could make a comparison with what happened about 30 years ago after the murder of Cabinet Minister Robert Ouko, then there was a commission of inquiry which was formed, headed by Justice Evans Gishero. How far that went, we still do not know. We have instances in the recent past, including what we are almost marking a year after, the Gen Z protests and the deaths that happened, and whether or not we have had any proper probe that can actually take us to closure. And we don't seem to have a way out. Do you see any hope in this particular case, that there's a particular route we could follow to get to a point of conclusion?
From the way it is started, I'm not seeing any bright future. And I'm not seeing justice being served to the victims. I'm calling them victims because we also have victims who are dumped at those dams we are talking about. We are all equal in the eyes of law. But when it comes now to implementing that law, there is selective justice. Why am I saying this? We never saw any meeting anywhere to discuss about the OCS and Mugwana before they were arrested. But today we are being treated to a narrative that there was discussion with the president, with the, I don't know, the minister, I don't know with who, to persuade, I don't know whether it is to persuade or is to arrange how the IG will step aside. I was expecting, after all that drama, Murugomen will come out and say, Lagat is either interdicted, or he has resigned, or he has been arrested. Those are the news we were expecting. But he comes and tells us he's going to put cameras. When the people now are crying. And this whole thing, as senior counsel has said, that it has some implication to the seat of the president. I'm not, as a politician, I am not seeing only the president. He has a brother here, seated with him, who is supporting him, a pillar, Because if you remove that pillar, there will be no there will be no Ruto. Politically, Raila Amolo Odinga is the one supporting this government. And forgive my French, and I'm not being, I'm not looking at the side of which tribe who comes from where. But when you look at the trade, we had Were, who was killed. Where does he come from? Now we have this other young man. Where does he come from? We are talking about Pendo. All these government assassinations, they are towards, and if you think like a Mukamba, you will ask, is there a sacrifice being offered somewhere for some people to sit comfortable in the government? Because when you go that route, I'm a staunch Catholic and I'm a Christian and I don't believe in those things. But you have to ask yourself, why is it happening? And nobody is saying nothing or doing anything. Whatever is happening is just a cup of tea somewhere, people discuss, and just like a small prayer is issued, and things now seem to be normal. It should be things fall apart for Raila and Ruto politically, because you cannot keep on killing my people while I'm supporting you. No, that cannot happen. Those are the things we need to hear from the political class, so that these things now can be taken with the seriousness it deserves. Okay. But those who are supposed to be talking, because they are hitting, they are observing table manners. They are quiet. They are not talking. All right? And Kenyans are serving. And now when you go back to what you have alluded to about the Aoko, it is because the powerful government was in the power and they are the one who committed the cases. And Wakilia will tell you, if you send hyena to go and investigate another hyena for hitting a cow somewhere, what are you expecting?
It is that sense of hopelessness and helplessness that I'm now wondering about, Bwana Gakuya. You say you believe in the rule of law, but which route will we follow? We know we're marking a year since the Gen Z revolution. Many people died. These are things that are there in the media. Nothing has happened till now. No commission of inquiry, no proper probe even by the Houses of Parliament. Now we have a new case. Of course, there's a lot of outrage, but as it seems, it will just go and fizzle out just like the rest of the cases.
Idimoli, it is important to understand that Kenya is under state capture. And when the state capture takes the control, it means nothing will happen. Because whatever will try to look its course, that course will be stopped by the capture. So nothing is moving to see the light of the day if the state does not want to go that direction. And that's why the buck stops at William Ruto and nowhere else. Because he is the end of state. He's the one to direct the nation on the better. Last 2 weeks, when he was in a prayer as Falibak, he seek for forgiveness. I do not want to know what kind of forgiveness was he looking for. Another day, when he was interviewed, he said very collected that those young men who has been abducted has already got back to their families. It means he is well believed. And therefore, any network which is doing this oil job is known to him. And if it can stop, it can only stop and stopped by him and nobody else. And remember the issue of the matter to do with the son of Mutuli. Mutuli was supposed to go to State House to seek for the release of his son. And it only took a phone from the head of state to the head of the intelligence for his son to be released. Therefore, as a Kenyans, we have only been taking back time. We have been taking circles. But this is happening daylight known by the state. The big question is, the head of state, during his campaign trial, he promised Kenyans, under his watch, under his government, no extrajudicial killing will take the day, will carry the day. Today, that's what is happening. I am of the opinion that the head of state should come clear, tell us what is happening. Because this matter of Ajuang is only now critical, because it is known and it was followed from the point of where it emanated. What about those we don't know, who have been caught without awareness? We have not known their fate. And we are asking this government, kindly, do not tell us only about Ajuang. Tell us about those other young ones that we have lost. Where have they gone? this particular DIG has been adversely mentioned as the head of the killer squad, and yet you want to cover him. And it is in the public domain. Then as a Kenya, we are asking, are we still under the protection of the same government? Or has the government turned to be the citizen eater? Because we are confused. And they can only blame one single organ, the head of state. Because if the head of state wants to sack this DIG, one strike of the pen, he's home. But I can tell you, we are not going to be comfortable. We cannot sleep without when we shall see action taken against the DIG. And I can tell you for sure, Idimbori, this man stepping aside, that's just a gimmick. That's just a massage. This fellow, after 2 months or 3, he will be back to work. We would like to see the head of state, if the CES cannot give such instruction, then the head of state has an obligation to hear the cries of Kenyans. And if he cannot, is going to mute. Whom are we looking to protect the citizens?
It must weigh on the president, even politically, that these things are happening this time. Just like you mentioned that President Moi probably was advised because of the elections in 1992, he had to do something. And probably that's why he came up with a commission of inquiry. President William Ruto too faces something similar in about 2 years' time. What would be the best route for him to actually change the tide? Probably even at least to pacify the masses, in a way at least to prepare himself for the election.
Good question. And you see, we've had a situation in the history of the country where, and to his credit, Daniel Arap Moi was a ruthless dictator. But there was one important feature about Daniel Arap Moi. He surrounded himself with people who one must say were credible people, people of high intelligence as advisors, who could lead you one way or the other in the event of difficulties. But the impression that you get of the current president is that he's not the kind of person who listens to advice. You've had a situation of this Gen Z and the extrajudicial killings. It is a fact, going by the denials that on record from the IG, that officially the people who have been engaging in these unlawful activities, that's why they mask themselves and everything else, it's a special squad. When you had a person high up in the ranking order in the name of Gachagua saying there is indeed a unit, he named a head, he named stations where these activities are carried out, and this is being confirmed. Then you get yourself to understand that this, in fact, is a truth, that there is a special squad engaging in these activities. Now, this special squad, because they are parallel to the police, though they are assisted largely with the vehicles run by DCI, the Subarus, to engage in these activities, cannot be happening without the direct knowledge of the president. And therefore, what is it that could be happening? You need to look outside. You must have had somebody called Augusto Pinochet, the one of Chile. Augusto Pinochet was also running his country the way in which Kenya is being run today. There were disappearances, there were abductions, all these kind of killings in the police force were happening. But the moment of reckoning came for Pinochet. And had it not been for Margaret Thatcher, Pinochet was going to answer for his crimes against humanity. Now, the issue now would be this: when you are head of state and serious crimes take place and you swore to defend the constitutions of Kenya and you do nothing, it means that he is leaving his fate to those people who will come against him. Because the truth of the matter, whether he will actually exit the political stage in 2027 or in 2032, people will not have forgotten these crimes. Even today, we keep talking about Robert Ouko. In the Robert Ouko case, they ended up killing too many people to ensure that one day justice will become almost impossible to be served. by the main actors. So that even here we are facing in a situations whereby a lot of all these people implicated in these killings of Gen Z, the people who could be witnesses, you could start another killing cycle of witnesses. And therefore, the long and short of it that we are saying that, and the protection of Lagat, how do you explain it from a legal point of view? If you run a special squad, the head of that special squad is implicated, and it is your squad. You must be able to protect that leader of the special squad. For what reason? That the special squad always operate on the basis that they enjoy presidential immunity. If you go after Lagat and Lagat is charged, it would mean that presidential immunity is not enough to secure these people to engage in these killings. And therefore, any failure to take action against Lagat can only mean there is no intention whatsoever to disband the special squad, and for that option of suppression through killings and abductions as a political strategy. And therefore, for me, this is where now people would be able to say, you know, God works in mysterious ways. Many killings, people have died in the current situations like Albert, isn't it? But the Albert situation, at least a lot of facts have come out. Probably God is angry and wants to get people who have been killing other people to be held accountable one way or the other. Whether it is today or it is some other day, Albert's blood is probably the blood that will lead to some form of justice, today or in future.
Yes. Let me tell you for sure. It's only that we are lucky that Ojwang was not arrested on his way home. If Ojwang was arrested anywhere outside his family, this could be a gone case. We are lucky that Ojwang was arrested from his home. So there's no way that these officers could hide. And that's why it has become clear. Any other person who was abducted in the absence of the family of unknown people is lost without any trace. And therefore, what we are saying, because this one is a known case, it has a root cause, it is known, this should be the end of this business.
Do you agree that probably that this could be the Waterloo moment? Because the feeling was that even with all the killings from last year, no one cared, no one bothered. In fact, we moved on.
I want to tell Kenyans, sorry Kenyans, you are on your own. Because we are being led by a person who does not care about anything. He does not care about the people he's leading. What he cares for is about himself and what he's doing for his either family or his friends. But he don't care for the large population. He cares zero. And that's why you see he has got no feelings at all. And he does not even imagine that he can stand one day and say this was wrong or that is wrong. This is a man who believes that nothing can happen to him. It's a man who believes that it doesn't matter what you guys say or think, because as a politician, you act with cautiousness. Kagwe here will tell you, he will take some decisions in his constituency based on the feelings of the people. Because if you do contrary to that, you fear to lose. The reason why we have laws in our country or in the world, or even God gave Moses some laws, is for people not to do some certain things, for the fear of what will happen when you go against that. This is a man who does not fear nothing. He can stand and tell you, we will not hand over power. What does that tell you? That he does not respect the wish of Kenyans. Because it doesn't matter who you vote, I will not hand over. That's what he's telling you. He's telling you, I have enough men apart from Lagat. I have the army, I have everybody who will protect me to keep the power. Even if you vote who in, I will not hand over. That's what he's saying. And that's a very, very dangerous and careless statement from the head of state. And that's why I'm calling him out for that. You cannot do that. This is a person, when Kenyans came out and said, you know, Mr. President, this bill is too harsh for us, he stood up and he called them criminals. And he sent people to go and kill them. So this is the person we are dealing with. Somebody who could not even come out and say, you know what, these guys are demonstrating, there is a reason, let us drop this. He only dropped it when the international community intervened. And when he saw that these guys are not going back, it doesn't matter how many you kill. That is the time he came out and he said, I concede. This is not a question of conceding. This is a question of understanding the needs of the people you are leading. And this is where now we have a problem. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing any bright future when we have this kind of a man leading us as the president. I don't care what people think about him, because I know those who are eating with him and those who are surrounding him, they are very comfortable. But how many Kenyans are unhappy? If I'm a leader, I will ask myself, how many people am I hurting? And how many people are unhappy because of me? And what can I do to change? But he is not changing. Things are happening on a daily basis, and whatever is happening, it is about people's life.
And dear Kenya, sometimes it's even hard to conduct these conversations because the sense of helplessness and hopelessness, despite the obvious nature of our discussions, all the dailies are talking about this, yet listening to these three gentlemen, it's like, hakuna mahali tunaenda, this is the end. Why should we get there?
Dimbu, let me tell you, this is not the end. This for sure. I am telling you, this is Kenya. We cannot be treated as if we are not the sovereign. Kenyans understand their rights very well. And that's why they have hammered this case, and you'll be hammered to the letter.
But Nagakuya, it's been a year since the Gen Z killings, and nothing has happened yet. And we are marking an anniversary here, and the feeling is that no one really cares.
Let me tell you, the state has all the time used what we call mechanisms of muting these young men so that they can silence them. But I can tell you, the revolution will come. Let me tell you. It has to come to an end, and I can tell you it will come to an end. This may not even take us to the ballot, I can tell you for sure. Let me tell you, this country was under one regime, which was a dictator during Moyela. And let me tell you, forcibly Kenyans wake up and demanded their right, and Section 2 was amended. Let me tell you, there's nothing difficult, and it is not difficult. And we are not going to allow William Ruto to be a dictator in this country. The law has to be followed. Let me tell you, Kenyans, they must rise up, and they must defend their rights.
Wakili, do you have any hope to offer Kenyans?
Yes. I have a lot of hope. And the main source of hope, as far as I'm concerned, is the Constitution of Kenya. Because under the Constitutions of Kenya, you can imagine Ruto being president and a different constitution from the one that we have. We would be talking about other stories. So the first hope that we have is the Constitution. The second issue, and this is a challenge to everybody, the worst sector that has particularly let down Kenyans is Parliament. When Honorable Gachagua talks about state capture today manifests itself predominantly in the fact that the president of Kenya is no longer politically accountable as required by the constitutions of Kenya, because the chief instrument to ensure that accountability is the National Assembly. The Senate does not have direct burden, but they do try significantly more. Yeah, but they try, at least from the point of view collectively. You even hear there are people of intelligence speaking at the Senate and showing outrage. But at the National Assembly, even when this matter of DIG went there, you could hear people trivializing the issue and saying is Gachagua's people probably killing Albert to make Ruto look bad. But the other issue, when I talk about vigilance, that's an important point. It means the Law Society of Kenya, lawyers like myself, lawyers like Omari, and who would be directly involved in this matter, and the judges themselves, that they will be the last line of defense for the people of Kenya. So far, the Kenyan courts, and I applaud them, have actually tried. Remember, people like Bob Njagi and others were actually going to be killed. They were held by the state for 2-3 months. There were some people, the unfortunate thing from the Mlolongo, they were killed probably before the courts could do something about it. And as Gachagua says, Albert, had he been arrested along the roads of Homa Bay, He could have been killed and we would not be here today discussing this matter. But there are two other issues that I need to mention. IPOA. IPOA, just like the High Court judgment confirmed the other day, are the people supposed to investigate the police. Remember, IPOA has not given its report. So the first challenge is to IPOA. Hassan Isaac and others, if they are watching this today, they have a big challenge. What's the big challenge? As an investigator, your work is to ensure that you do a report. All crimes that have been committed, you indicate these crimes have been committed, not just murder. Because remember, there is clear abuse of power by the DCI boss, Amin, and Lagat, in sending people because Lagat has been defamed. Defamation is a civil offense in Kenya. Defamation is not a crime that you can go the special crimes prevention units run by Amin to send its Subarus to Homa Bay to go and arrest people whom you take in police stations that are run by Lagat and where there are no complaints pending there of a criminal nature. Because defamation is not criminal. So that's abuse of power before you get anywhere else. Then you go to the other police officers and to other people. There are many criminal offenses, including even by the IG himself, covering up. Remember in Nixon, one of the problems that got them into a lot of trouble is that after crimes were committed, the president and his assistants started to cover up for an offense. Covering up for offenses is what is called obstruction of justice. Obstructions of justice, the IG himself is responsible for that. DIG, Amin, and the Minister for Security, that is Murkomen, because this is what has been going on. So a number of offenses have been committed. We wait to see what will happen by IPOA. The second important person, three actually, there is the DPP. The DPP and Article 157 of the Constitutions must ensure we get to the root of this matter after receiving the report of IPOA. Then we have the Attorney General, the defender of public interest. The Attorney General has not even spoken a single word. There is public interest and the Attorney General is supposed to be the custodian of public interest to ensure that the Kenyans' cry for justice is heard. So that when you say that today, Kenyans are seemingly hopeless, serious crimes under international law and Kenyan law have been committed, and nothing has happened. The ire, the disgust that we must express must be to the Attorney General. Why is this happening? At least Muturi, when he was not Attorney General, has said these were crimes and he had taken that position, that these crimes must be addressed. We would like to know from the current Attorney General, what is your positions about the fact that we have had so many disappearances, we have had so many excuses, disappearances and executions in mysterious circumstances. What have you advised the President, as it is your constitutional duty? And what have you done as the custodian of public interest and the head of the Justice Department? Because we have a Justice Department under the Attorney General. So there are people that we must also insist, you cannot keep your job in these circumstances. Because even the CJ, and she has tried a little bit, when a lot of executions have been going on, at least the judiciary has been issuing statements and saying, this is unacceptable. Have you heard the Attorney General saying, this is unacceptable? Enablers of injustice, something must be done to them. Okay. And in this particular case, it is DPP, IPOA, and Attorney General. Before we go very far, we must see what these three state officials will do about this matter.
And ladies and gentlemen, you can send us your comments about the kind of discussions we're having. We'll be beaming the WhatsApp number on the screen very shortly so that you can also let us know what you think about this. Because it is a big discussion. Yes, I want us to finish this so that we can talk some politics.
That is also my wish. But my big question is, what are we? What action are we expecting? What a statement that is pro-people that we expect from the office of IG. It seems, right from the onset, that issues to do with the public seal can be taken from his office to the State House, and he stayed mute. If he cannot even comment on that. Number two, if you are always singing the tunes and the colors of the master, who do you expect from him? This is state capture, and we are saying the state has captured every other office. We have heard from the DCI trying to implicate that Ojwang killed himself, and that he hated the wars of the Central Police to find his death. Are these the officers that we expected anything collect, anything read from them? It is wrong because they are, from the onset, they are out there to cover these particular processes. Okay. It is wrong.
I want to give you the final word on this so that we can move to some politics. We are marking 1 year since the Gen Z revolt, and curiously, these are the headlines we're looking at.
There's a question you asked, and the counsel here answered, and he told you that he has a lot of hope because of our constitution, which I somehow differ with him. Why? Because if you take audit of what has happened in the last 2 years in existence of the same constitution, right? All these are happening while that constitution is in place. We are not using another one. It is the same constitution we have. And with that constitution, you see what is happening in our country. And I have seen, or we have seen, not only the Inspector General of Police, DCI, the minister, and even the chairman of IPOA holding a press and tell Kenyans this guy committed suicide. For any person of such a stature to tell the nation, because they were not addressing the father of Ojwang, they are addressing the nation, and telling the nation a lie, is something to question. Because if I am in that position of Inspector General and I accept to read a statement, and I had them saying the originator of the statement, who wrote that statement, which you wrote, is the one we are going for. How on earth would you read a statement without verifying it? You have all the mechanism. You have everything you need at your disposal to go and counter-check and confirm whether this is statement, because it's of grievous magnitude. Have you done that as an officer? No, the answer is no. And the reason why I'm telling you I have no faith in what we are expecting in the future. We were all treated to a narrative. I have been here for a long time, and I had a senior year say he finished Form 4 in 1990. That's why I realized I'm old. Because at the time I was finishing, I was looking for jobs somewhere. Since time and memorial, we have never seen a CDF come out and speak matters political. Never. This time around, we saw CDF coming and telling us, hey, stop, this must go. We had him. We had the director of NIS talking. What does that tell you? They are getting orders from somewhere to go and caution Kenyans, we are here. If you try to mess up, we are the people with the guns. We are the people who have the power. So if you try to mess up with our guy, who is the president, we'll come in. So the only hope I'm seeing, let me tell you, and I want to tell Kenyans, Kenyans must unite in 2027 for one purpose. Whether you like me or you don't like me, we must unite to liberate our country 2027. And our win we will protect. And if we say we will not hand over, and like former DP said, that there's no provision of handing over, we will go to Kasarani and assume power.
All right.
Yes.
Speaking of the former deputy president,
it will just
briefly,
a rejoinder. You know, the defense of the constitutions, we have an article called Article 3.1 of the constitutions. It requires everybody, from the president to the lowest of our citizens, including a police constable, to defend, to honor, and respect the Constitution. What that means is that everybody in whatever stations that you are doing, you are supposed to ensure that you promote the values and the principles under our Constitution. I must applaud, because it is not all, everything is not gone wrong. We have the pathologist. The pathologist, in fact, where we've gotten, the people who discredited the theory of the pathologist are the pathologists, that Ojwang had killed himself. Remember, was he called Cavity, the pathologist during the time of Robert Ouko? He came and wrote a crazy report, like supporting the theory that was being peddled by the police and Moi during that time about how Ouko was not killed and somehow killed himself. So but the pathologists did very well. We must also say that Bagathi, the officials, the health officials at Bagathi have come out and have been able to say this man was brought here dead. So that even as we look at the current gloom, we can also be able to say that those people, and including the newspaper that we are discussing today, the newspapers could have chosen, and the journalists of our country, you guys could have chosen just like to treat this matter like it's not serious, it doesn't exist. We would be talking about a different thing. But everybody, as long as you do your bit, us as lawyers, some lawyers, there is some things they are doing, and I and other lawyers, there are other things that will definitely be done to ensure there is accountability. Members of parliament must do their bit. Attorney General, IPOA, if everybody did their bit, the president cannot even run this militia, because it would mean everybody would be able to say, but this is not my job. The law does not permit me to do this. So that the president alone, even if he went rogue, to whatever extent, cannot be able to get into a dictator. Recently, this is the last one, in the statement done by Gachagua, thank God he asked me to do that statement on the NCIC thing, he pointed out about a statement made by Julius Caesar a long time ago, that Julius Caesar was asked, and how did you become a dictator? Do you know what Julius Caesar answered? He said, because nobody stopped me. So the challenge to Kenyans is to ensure the second attempt by President William Ruto to reestablish dictatorship will not be permitted by everybody doing their bit to resist. If that one is done, we shall be safe.
Wow. I know this is a story that will not come to an end. All the headlines are talking about it, but I want us to move to some politics now. And now that you've mentioned the former deputy president, he issued another presser yesterday, or a sit-down with the media house, and he said a lot of things. It is part of the stories covered here at TV47. Let's have this story about the former deputy president, Gachagua, about a call that he apparently received from President Ruto.
Speaking in a media interview Monday morning, the former deputy president disclosed that his former boss, President William Ruto, has been contacting him through phone calls which he ostensibly deemed not important to answer. Gachagua, who has since made clear that the opposition's top priority was to remove Ruto in the 2027 general election, has remained reluctant to reconcile, describing Ruto as an enemy of the Mount Kenya region.
We have no plan. We have a plan. And that plan does not favor him. That's why he says it's not a plan. The plan is to remove him. And that's what Kenyans want. They want a team with a plan to remove him. The simple reason is that for any other plan to work, he must be out of office. So we have so many other plans. We have a plan on how to restore the dignity of the payslip. We have a plan on how to restore the education system.
Gachagua expressed confidence that this united front can successfully challenge Ruto's government, highlighting his presidential ambition, which he was willing to shelve following a unanimous decision to prevent President William Ruto from securing a second term.
The president is saying, first and foremost, that he will not hand over to people who have no plan. To start with, there is no provision for handing over in this country. The provision is for assumption of office. If he turns up in Kasarani or not, it will not change anything. But we are at least happy that he is accepting that things are serious and he's headed home.
While voicing doubts about the newly appointed IEBC commissioner's legitimacy, The former deputy president also urged Gen Zs to register to vote, expressing optimism that the 2027 elections will be free and fair.
We are accommodative to anybody who has a desire to participate in regime change so that we exit William Ruto as president and get a new president and a new government. CJ Maraga is welcome to work with us. And I think sometimes back they were in touch with Mother Karua, but he hasn't formally come to join our group. If he desires to come and work with us, we are more than willing.
While other regions are receiving significant support, Gachagua criticized the ongoing empowerment efforts in various parts of the country, claiming that the Mount Kenya region is being ridiculed with what he termed as useless stuff. Gachagua, who was removed from office in October 2024, claimed that President William Ruto is now desperate for support from ODM leader Raila Odinga and will do anything to ensure his political survival. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, Nairobi.
A lot has been said about the president's statements of not necessarily handing over power come 2027 to people with no plan. And the people who say it's just one of those political rhetorics that any politicians may choose to use. Should we take it so seriously that the president said that?
Indemnity, the words from a sitting president are very weighty. These are indicators that head of state, in his mind, in his mindset, his plan is to make sure that he rig himself and remain in power. And it tells you he wants to use all means to make sure that he preserves his re-election, either way. And this is an indicator saying the constitution does not matter. What will matter is how I will secure my re-election. This is either way, and this is the elected telling Kenyans, I'm not going to respect the voice of the people and the will of the people. But on the onset, I won't tell the head of state this way. This constitution is to be respected from anybody who calls himself a Kenyan citizen, including himself. And he was taken an oath, he took an oath to protect it. That was oath number one, to protect the people of the citizens and their property. And therefore, we cannot allow any single moment, to allow the head of state to use Banana Republic to take mantle or to impose himself or re-elect himself. The rule of law must take place. And William Ruto must also take back and use his side mirror and ask himself, how does he find himself in that position? He found himself on a presidential position through a process, which was a legal process given and allowed by the Constitution. And that's why after a petition that was filed by the opposition and declaration that he was legally elected, that was only when he was declared the president. And therefore, it does not matter whether he will not hand over to anybody. This country belongs to the citizens of this country. He is just a custodian of 5 years. The determination of the next step is not him, it is Kenyans.
But are we reading too much into these statements? Politicians say a lot of things. Even his predecessor said about him not necessarily handing over power to what he called a thief.
I think you need to look at this thing in the view of the circumstances going on and the anecdotal evidence, both political and legal. Let us go back. In mid-2000, I don't know whether it was sometime between 2003 and 2007, there was a general elections in Uganda. Besigye actually defeated Museveni. But before the elections could be declared, Museveni, in the company of the people he called the NRM, all the generals and everybody who was with him in the bush, or the representatives of those people, came out in armed attire, in armed uniform, and with an AK-47. And it said, I came to power in Uganda through AK-47. I cannot be declared I did not win the election. Ultimately, because at that time, all the results were showing Besigye is winning. From that time, massaging of election results were done, Museveni was declared president. There was a huge election petition that is, we read about it, Semogerere versus whatever. You get it? So when presidents say, and the presidents who have committed so many crimes, that I would want to hang on to power, and like Honorable Mutambu is saying, they are getting people like Lagat, people like Amin, the current IG, the head of NIS, okay? All these people to come and say, we have to defend this. This is the terrible signal you can be able to say. Our president is very close to, he's a political student, a protege of Yoweri Museveni. So when you see Kenya increasingly resembling Uganda more and more, you take it seriously. And therefore, when the president starts to speak in the manner in which Museveni speaks, take it seriously. I want to give you legal evidence. Currently, before Parliament, we have an amendment bill moved by Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of majority. It is called the Office of President and Transition of Executive Power, 2025. Do you know what is the gist of that bill? The gist of that bill is this, that after IEBC declares somebody as president-elect, as duly elected, and before even the legal dispute has taken place, that person would assume all the prestige, all the protection, and everything that goes with a sitting president. What this means in simple language is that, you see, when as you wait for the coronation to take oath, you are just another politician under the constitutions of Kenya. But if they say that everybody else would effectively be answerable to you and you would be like a sitting president, this would be a coup. That an election result achieved, and you have seen how they are getting an election body that is completely one-sided, that if it declares somebody to have been duly elected, this person, from that day, and as you argue before the Supreme Court and any other argument, would have all the benefits, would have all the privileges, and you see the power. Power comes with that prestige. That the power prestige of a sitting president, helicopters, or the whole caboodle will be given to you. This is the clearest intention that as we prepare for 2025, starting with the kind of compromise IPPG that they are getting, that it is going to be messy ahead, and this is why you need people like Lagat than these compromised units that you're having. So if you take it to be just a mere statement, you cannot make a bigger mistake than that. Members of Parliament must ensure this kind of bill that is effectively overthrowing the transition mechanism of our constitution does not see the light of day. But the challenge also to lawyers, they must ensure that this is challenged because it is expressly an attempt to overthrow the constitution. It always starts with a transition. Uganda's problem, if you don't know history, constitutionally, Uganda's problem arises from 1966, when Obote was able to overthrow the constitution, and there was an internal coup. Internal coup in the transition is how all coups developed, what they are called civilian coups. They are already preparing for a civilian coup. We must be very afraid.
Bwana Mutambu, on that issue.
When you look at the way our government is and the activities going around, and the pronouncement by government senior officers, including members of parliament and those who hold positions like Kimani Ichung'wah, proposing what should happen in 2027, that is a preparation of civil war in this country. Let us put it as it is. It is a preparation of civil war in this country. Because what they
have been warnings issued on that same thing, trying to say that 2027 might be like any other time in our past.
I'm
NCSC
telling you,
said,
when you hear the
don't go that
president
direction.
himself, and I'm talking from the words from the president, when you hear president saying, I will not hand over power, okay? He's telling Kenyans, it doesn't matter what you do, all right? And what will be the repercussion of that? If Kenyans come out overwhelmingly and elect their leader, and somebody somewhere says, I am not handing over, and I'm going to remain in power. Number two, you see CDF coming out, and he's saying, yo, people, stop this, use the constitution. A constitution which now is being manipulated by the people who are supporting the current regime. What does that tell you? When you hear director of NIS talking of the same, when you hear people out here saying that we are going to buy Kalonzo, we are going to do this, we are going to use money, when you hear such utterances from certain clique of people in our country who actually has some support from the same government, what are we expecting? What I'm telling Kenyans, because I would be worried or I would be satisfied when I see the president and his men, they are out there campaigning, asking for people to vote for them. But what they are doing today, and I'm going to tell Kenyans, Ruto is not interested in asking for your votes. He is making sure that he rigs the election, and he is preparing himself behind the tent to make sure that he rigs the election. It doesn't matter what you people do. That is what he said. If you interpret, I can interpret dreams.
Remember the Somali. They say they will add with the Somali.
Yes. Okay? When you hear him giving free registration of people, okay, who come from nowhere, what does that tell you? They are manipulating the numbers from where they sit. There is a cartoon, a cock of people somewhere trying to manipulate the numbers so that it doesn't matter what the opposition does. Their numbers carries the day, and they will prove to Kenyans that we won. And
you see that happening?
That is being prepared to happen, my friend. That's what I'm saying. Kenyans need to come and unite.
I think in votes they will lose, but they will try to undertake a civilian coup. When you talk from a constitutional point of view, that things could go pretty bad in 2027, is that there is no clear pathway for President Ruto, with or without the support of Raila Odinga, for him to be re-elected. And that is why you are seeing all these efforts being done to ensure that there is an option of suppressing Kenyans, intimidating them, and ensuring that even before the Supreme Court has declared who really won, you can be able to do things your way. And that is where people say that the possibility that a very nasty situations might develop is not an out of the blue scenario.
We have 2 minutes. I think I'll give you each about 60 seconds for your parting shot.
My parting shot is very clear, that this country belongs to Kenyan citizens, and everybody, including the head of state, is not in the position of the head of state through a coup. He is from a civil elections. And therefore, my take is that all of us must respect the rule of law. And the head of state must be the mirror of this country. And we should not expect or even dare to think that, in fact, this country can move back to what we call bloodshed. And any signal, any indicator to let Kenyans suspect that we are moving on the wrong direction is wrong. The head of state, my advice is, take the country onto the path of the Constitution. And you must lead by example. Remove all killers' codes because they are known to you. Let this country be free from all these embargoes so that Kenyans can enjoy peace.
Thank you. Bwana Mutambo.
I would ask the president to withdraw the statement that he will not hand over the power. Kindly, Mr. President, that statement left bitter taste on Kenyans' mouth. You better withdraw it before we go to election, because you are fueling very bad scenario come 2027. Even if you win, Kenyans will believe that you have taken it by force because you want them. Na nilikuwa nimewawarn kwamba sitapeana hii kitu. That is what will come 2027, and it is very bad president to be set by a sitting president. Kenya is a constitutional country which respects the law, and everybody is, there's no one who is above the law, must respect the same constitution. Right. President is there because of the same constitution. When people went to court, he was pronounced through the same constitution, and is now enjoying the fruits of the constitution. Let him allow other Kenyans enjoy the fruits of the same constitution he is enjoying, and not by blocking it because he is the president.
Asante. Wakili?
Two quick things. Number one, in the same way on this matter of Lagat and Albert, justice for Albert Ojwang, in the same way that pathologists, the hospital staff at Bagathi, and the people of Kenya have collectively stood up to demand for justice, we expect that IPOA, the DPP, and the Honorable Attorney General and the Kenyan courts will ensure that there is no cover-up and justice is served as expected by the constitutions in this matter, together with the larger justice for the Gen Z and other Kenyans who have been killed without good reason. Issue number two, quickly, is this. Kenyans, we should remember the words of Julius Caesar. I became a dictator because nobody stopped me. If Kenya ever becomes a dictatorship again, let us not forget the lesson of history. Because we did not, all of us, stand up, or a critical mass did not stand up to stop Ruto from turning Kenya into a dictatorship once again. We must all stand up in unison to reject all these moves being made to turn Kenya into a dictatorship again.
All right, thank you for that. And just before we wrap up, there's one contribution by one of our viewers. It says, my humble prayer to my fellow Kenyans is we unite in 2027 at the ballot and vote out this regime. No money in our pockets, no job for the youth, making university education unaffordable for our children. And he goes on to say what else could happen. Asante sana for your participation and your views. Thank you so much to my panelists, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Wakili Kibe Mungai, who's a constitutional lawyer, and Joe Mutambo, former MP Mwingi Central. Our panelists this morning as we discuss very crucial issues in our country. And if you look at the dailies, I think it's only the face of one man who runs across all papers, and that's a DIG, Eliud Lagat, who now says he has stepped aside, whether or not that's even possible. The Standard says no, simply just resign. Well, after the break, we switch gears and talk about matters business competitiveness in East Africa. My colleague Arno Dida will be having a sit-down with Lilian Mwai Ndegwa, who is the country director at Trademark Africa. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Have a lovely day.